figure it out, fell on the one on the show because it was not the same. It
Oh,
threw differently. It was a different setup. It was looser. So that's just, I mean, that's the game. You got to be
yeah.
ready for everything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Uh, well, so that was season 9.
Yeah.
And so then you were back. So you came back for season 10. You said that was one of your highlights.
Yeah. So season 10, so after season 9, when everything was like, okay, we got the transplant, we can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a celebratory episode they shared. Um, I was thinking about going back for another year, and I didn't really want to. At that point, I needed to kind of felt like I needed to get back to life
Mm-hmm.
with a healthy daughter now
Mm-hmm.
and go help take care of my wife and my daughter. And I was talking to the transplant coordinator and I was praying about it. And I was like, that was way too easy to find a kidney. Um, as many people that were willing to donate. So I decided I decided to come back and do it again. And at that point we were gonna find find some more kids that needed that platform
Mm-hmm.
because the word just has to get out there. So I actually reached out to the transplant coordinator and said, "Hey, can you? This isn't what my idea is. Can you be thinking about a couple kids that need this platform and or would be willing to their parents maybe be willing to meet with me so we can talk about doing this?" And that's when I met a little boy named Dillard and a little girl named Liza.
Okay.
Um, and so going into season 10, I had shirts made with their pictures on them. So trying to think of which night was which. I think I wore Liza's shirt first
Mm-hmm.
in qualifier, which I did. I got second place in the qualifier that night. Then city finals, I wore Dillard's shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually won the regional that night. I got I got the fastest time. So I was dialed in both nights.
Yeah.
Watching those runs going back. This is where I had developed a mindset of visualization on my uh, the course. I
Okay.
probably ran those courses in my head at least 1,000 times each.
At least a
No,
thousand
at least
times.
1,000 times through my head to where I would go and I'd close my eyes and I would go through how I was going to walk up the steps, whether I was going
Yep.
to take 1 foot on each step or 1 foot or 2 step or skip steps or jump. I tried every scenario in my head and I would take a step, till I got it how I wanted it in my head, kind of visualized it happening, how I was going to act on the stage before they count down the camera, which foot I was going to start on the first obstacle, which hand I was going to grab first, how many backswings I was going to take on everything. And I would run through this course in my head. And if I messed up on anything, I'd start all the way back at the beginning and I'd do, okay, step up, walk up the steps, do this, count down in my head, 3, 2, 1, boop, 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 go, run, first step, right foot, go here, jump, grab right hand above left hand, swing to there, jump on this thing, take 10-second break between this obstacle, get on one backswing. And in my head while I'm visualizing, if I took two backswings or I get disrupted, I'd go all the way back to the beginning and start over until I could do that whole course through with no mistakes in my head. That way, when I got on the course, I didn't have to think about what I was going to do. I would just do it because that's what my brain was trained to do.
That
So
is absolutely awesome. I love
so
every bit of
so
it.
in that yeah, and so in that season, you can see that the
Mm-hmm.
efficiency if you watch like me run through the course you just did and watch on those, if you pay attention, you'll see there's no wasted movement. There's no extra backswings. And the Akbar and Matt Eisman aren't. There's no room for he's taking the extra time. He's taking
Yeah.
the extra swing. That's they don't have. There's no room for that. So that was a good season. And then I actually went to Vegas, and in Vegas, I at stage one, it's tough. I actually timed out
Mm.
about a second before the buzzer. So that's the only stage in all of Ninja that there's a time limit on. And I was
You
climbing the
timed
car
out
going,
a second before you hit the buzzer.
yeah, I think that one's on YouTube. I think that
Okay.
one's
Well,
on.
I'm not going to play it because I'll kill
Yeah,
my
you can't
second
play
stream
that.
that I put up. But people can go look at this on
Yeah,
YouTube. Season 10. It's all over. Kenny Niemitalo. Look it up.
yeah.
Um, that's incredible. I'm pretty sure I watched all these. I just didn't remember all these details. Uh, and that's incredible. So
But both of those runs, they actually did stories
yeah,
on Dillard and
yep.
Liza, and they both received kidney transplants.
Through the publicity that was
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't remember exactly how each story went, but
Mhm.
there was enough publicity that it might not have been directly from that, but
Sure,
there was some
but it
inspiration
gets the
with
word
certain
out there.
people, and yeah.
And then it feels like you're doing something like you mentioned for the producers. It was something bigger than the show, and for you, it was bigger than the show. It was bigger than the competition. It was bigger than just trying to win. Um, it was about something that was really pretty personal. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the focus of knowing what I was capable of and the self criticizing of
Mm-hmm.
the extra pressure I put on myself was a little more back burner at this point.
Yeah.
I didn't have that at the forefront of my mind anymore. It's Don't get me wrong. I knew I had the capabilities to go and do what need to be done,
Right.
but there's luck involved. It's
Yeah.
got to happen that one time that night at 4 in the morning after you've been through all this and that and froze and told to go and then wait a minute and then we're going on break and there's a lot going on there for you to put it all together. It's something pretty spectacular. There's only been a handful of guys that have done it, so I I,
That's
I knew the reality of it was it was pretty slim, and um,
yeah.
I was okay with that.
Well, that mentality of like, so when I just a little anecdote to go with this, I had two talks I had to give to one in Poland and one in Amsterdam. Is it 2019? And it just reminded your story reminded me of this. I didn't really have time to prep for the second talk. It was a technical talk. The first one went well, and I had time to prep for it beforehand. But I only had a week between that and going to Amsterdam, and I rented a car, and I had some stuff I wanted to like see in Germany, and I went to Prague, and I kind of like drove through Germany, and I realized the only way I was gonna get, because once I got to Amsterdam, it was like nighttime and then my talk. Like that's how close the schedule was. I
Hmm.
was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I already planned out what I was gonna do. I was gonna do a live coding because the conference that I was gonna be giving a talk in front of was like 800 software developers, and I was going to do a live coding session. So I'm programming on stage, this huge stage. It's an incredible, like 3,500 square foot screen behind me, something like
Oh
that.
wow, wow.
And but I didn't have time to practice, so I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't practice it. So I practiced it once, twice, like for real. And then as I was driving, through Germany, like on the Autobahn and through these back,
Yeah, yeah.
I was coding in my head,
Hmm.
just like what you're talking about. A little different stakes, but like I was doing that visualization thing, and I was literally coding in my head exactly what I would do in every part of this like half hour talk. And when I did the talk, I had already done it in my head
That's
probably
right.
80 times or something,
Yeah.
so not 1,000, but like 80 times and I would just do it in my head as I was driving. And the talk went great because my brain already knew exactly what to do in every moment.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Well, 80 times while driving is probably harder than 1,000 times with my eyes shut in a corner.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I relate to that a little bit. It was something that definitely Yeah, I'd never given a talk in front of 800 people before. I mean, that was, I think the one in Poland was probably about 350 or 400 or something. Still a lot of people, but 800, it was pretty overwhelming. But anyway, um, so so in 11, uh, let's see, I'm trying to see here where you ended up.
So
So
season 11
you were at
would have been
Atlanta.
Jordan.
That
Yeah.
was in 2019. Um, and so you went from there to the finals, and
So
okay.
season 11,
Go ahead.
I wasn't gonna come back for.
Yes.
I was pretty burnt out. As you can
Yep.
imagine, my shoulders were always aching.
Yep.
Um, all the tendonitis always flaring,
Yeah.
just just a lot going on, mentally, physically. So I was like, just the anxiety of the show. Pretty much promised myself I'd never come and do this again. Every time I was doing it, because I couldn't handle the anxiety for I'm
Yeah.
literally trying to go throw up the 2 weeks before comp. I'm trying to throw up to feel better, just to get
Mm,
release that
yeah.
anxiety. And this is not a good. That's a dark place. And I was like, I'm not doing it. But then I'm like, but I can't be a coward. I can't be a
Mm,
coward to it. So I had that mental battle going on. And
yeah.
the biggest thing is with that was, it's like it's too easy to share these stories and see the results of people's lives being changed over a little bit of 2 weeks of my uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
So I called transplant coordinator, said, if I do this again, is there anybody that's like in desperate need? I didn't, in my head, I'm thinking there better be a good reason for me to do
If
this,
I'm
like
gonna
a
go
real
through
big
this,
need. And
yeah.
selfishly, I was just like, there better be a good reason.
Yeah.
And she, without skipping a beat, she said, Jordan Rhodes. I said, okay, tell me about Jordan. She said, Jordan has had a transplant.
Hmm.
He's got a lot of other medical stuff going on. The doctors have pretty much told him, and at the time his granny was taking care of him and doing all this stuff. She said the doctors have pretty much told him, because of how his other transplant failed and everything, that he'd be an impossible match, and they just need to take him home
Hmm.
and live out some days.
Hmm.
And that just kind of was like, I serve a big God. We're
Yeah.
good. If that's the answer to my prayer, I serve a big God. I know what doctors have to say and what they need to say, but we're gonna that was enough reason for me to come back for another season.
Yeah.
So we come back, shared Jordan's story,
Hmm.
had probably the most peaceful season I had. Um,
Yep.
did really well in qualifier.
Hmm.
I was actually the first person that night to finish a course set. They were wondering if anybody was going to beat it.
Okay.
It went to about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was the first person to clear the course. And
Wow.
the producers were getting nervous because they need so many people to clear.
Sure. Yeah.
So cleared that course and then went into city finals. And because I had Hazel on set with me, they would typically run me a little earlier, so she
Hmm.
didn't have to stay up that late.
Yeah.
So I was I ran out of the order, and I ran and got to the final obstacle of the city finals, which is an obstacle that I had done in season 10, no problem. But it had just rained, and this is outdoors in Miami. Rain shut us down for an hour. They did go through in front of me and wiped everything down, all the
Hmm.
plexiglass, changed out the carpet bonded foam on a lot of stuff, because at that point I felt special because I was actually getting some of the celebrity, treatment that I had seen some of these other guys getting. That
Sure. Yeah.
they were getting the treatment. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Hmm.
Got to the final obstacle. The one pad they didn't change was the logo mat in the bottom of that obstacle that would follow you up as you climb.
Yeah.
So when you fall, you just fell 6 feet. And I I got to the final obstacle, jumped in there, turn around, and it's just this wall that you get between, and you start going up, and then you have to open these doors.
Yeah.
that turn into the wall, and you just keep going up. Well, I didn't even get to the first. I barely got to the first set of doors because my feet were soaked, and
Oh no,
I
because
was
you stepped on
sliding,
that platform and
stepped
it
on the
was wet.
mat, and turn around. And the rules are, as soon as you engage in an obstacle, you cannot disengage, or that's a fail.
So you couldn't be
So,
like, hey, you need to wipe this off.
well, I could have, but I'm just not that guy. Like
Yeah.
I just don't know how to play those games like a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
these veterans do.
Yeah.
And I've watched them. I've watched some guys throw hissy fits, and I just don't want to be that
Yeah.
guy.
You don't want to be that guy. Yeah.
Um,
But this was legitimately an issue. Like,
it was for sure an
yeah.
issue. That was
Yeah.
probably the only time I've ever been frustrated with
Yeah.
afterwards. And they apologized to me a lot about it, but they had enough.
Yeah. I actually saw on, I think, either Wikipedia or one of the, just an online page about it, but they literally say for that season that you failed because one of the things didn't get wiped down.
Yeah, the mat was
Like,
wet, and no, in their
yeah.
defense, they wiped down everything really well, and they just missed the logoed mat, something they didn't have a backup for. So
Yeah.
when I climbed in there and got going up, I mean, I couldn't get any traction with my feet. I'm literally holding with my arms straight out,
Yeah.
my whole body. And if you ever notice, I wear pants on the course most of the
Mm.
time. This is the reason I wear pants, because when I was in that obstacle, I was able to try to bring, so this is my leg. I'd bring my foot up and trying to wipe my shoe on my pant leg.
No
So
way.
that's one of the many reasons that I always wore pants, because it was for a purpose.
Yeah.
Um, in that situation, if you find that clip and go watch, if anybody goes to
Yeah.
watch that clip, they'll see me do that. Both feet, both
Because
trying to
you
get.
immediately knew this was a problem and
As
you're like,
soon as I
I got to do
engaged,
something.
I was like, I got to get these things dried because I couldn't step back off, or I'm DQ'd.
Yeah.
And I got to the first door, and every time I try to push up on that door, it's 60 pounds. Push that door, my feet would just slide straight down because you're holding with your feet at that point.
And you don't have enough
So
traction. Yeah.
no, so you know, I just ran out of steam right there and jumped out, and it's like, is what it is. And I went to the producers, and they're like, tell us what happened. You know, they get the mic in your face and what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I said, well, we need to talk about what's going on before I tell them what's going on. So they were like, okay, well, if you're, you know, they kind of told me how to play it off and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll do that. And these are the elements, and we got to battle them, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I want you to go move that mat and wipe that obstacle down, because one of my best buddies is about to run. And they did. They wiped it down, and he was the first clear.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Yeah.
it was one of the guys that I trained with quite a bit out of
Yeah.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
Um,
Well, yeah. Like it cut yours short, but you were able to help him out.
yeah.
So that's good. Um, did you not go any further or did you go to Vegas on that one?
Uh, yes. I went to Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
and in Vegas, I actually twisted my ankle coming off. You remember the double the dipper thing that I had fell
Mm-hmm.
on earlier? Well, in Vegas, they have a double dipper where it's 30 feet off the ground over the water.
Mm-hmm.
You slide down, and you get to the end, and you let go, and you gap to another bar and catch another one on another dipper. And
And
when
then
I
go
come
again.
and
Yeah.
go again, and then when I landed on the mat, I actually twisted my ankle,
Mm.
and I twist my ankle a little bit, which I was fine with, but with a lot of the anxiety and the
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline and the 107 degrees and this and everything adding up, I started seeing like I couldn't see straight. I got
Mm.
to where it was like I don't know if it was some dehydration and everything else, and the
Yeah.
adrenaline and everything stacked up. So I actually got to the second to last obstacle. Basically, I had to run across these little diving board things, paddle boards, whatever they're called. And I'm looking at it, and I couldn't quite see straight, and my body wasn't operating right. And I decided I'm for the first time in my career, I'm just gonna stop right here, because
Mm.
if I ended up in that water, I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to swim or get out.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
they actually had to come and carry help me off the course, and
Yeah.
it took me a couple hours to recover, just
Yeah.
to get seeing straight. So yeah, that was a big confirmation that I needed a mental and physical break. I was kind of
Yeah.
burnt out on all of it. I put
Yep.
in a lot of energy and I just needed a break.
Yep.
And also had another baby on the way, and
Yep.
my wife needed me more than the
Sure.
TV show did. So
Yeah. And so was that the last Ninja Warrior that you competed in?
yeah, so that was the last one. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a break for at least a year, maybe two
Yeah.
years,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully come back and once if I'm mentally and physically where I want to be, I'll come back
Mm-hmm.
and do it again. And I decided to take the break, and then COVID happened.
COVID happened 2020. Yep.
Yep,
Yep.
2020, and so I didn't apply, and they
Mm-hmm.
called me and they said, hey, we don't see your application in here, and they're due next week.
Yeah.
What's going on? And I told them a little about what was going on, and they were like, there's way more important things than a TV show. So we get
Sure.
it. Go take care of your family. Go take care of you. And we hope to
Mm-hmm.
see you back in the future. And it's kind of one of those things you don't want to do anything to upset producers because
Sure.
they're the ones ultimate say on whether you come
Yeah.
on the show or not.
Right.
So I was kind of nervous about it to like shut a
Mm-hmm.
door or burn a bridge. And when they told me that, it gave me a more of a piece about the whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
they ended up calling me a month later when COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was December.
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened. COVID started to come in the spring, and they
Yep.
they called and said, "Hey, we were going to cancel the season, but we're actually going to do a mini season just with a very select few people. We'd like for you to come to St. Louis but you have to COVID test. You got to
Mm-hmm.
quarantine. You got to come here. You got to quarantine here for 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
testing every single day, and commit to being here for at least 3 weeks." And I
Yeah.
was like, nah, that just doesn't fit life right now
Yeah.
with newborn and everything else coming
Right.
in the
Yeah.
picture. And I'm like, nah, this isn't gonna work. So I bowed out, and then that that's where they yeah, that was kind of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
In doing so, in that COVID changing that, not only
Mm-hmm.
that, but the culture I'd spoke to you before about how
Yeah.
we were looking out for each other. Like, hey, I just got
Yeah.
you know, messed up on this wet mat.
Yeah.
Fix it because my buddy's coming and I want
Right.
him to be
Right.
successful. That started to go away as they started to allow younger kids in because it was
Hmm.
always 21 and older.
Yep.
Well, you have these monsters coming up, like kids that had been doing it since they were 4 or 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
hitting into their teens, and I mean, they're carrying no adult weight.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lactic acid building up in them, and they
Mm-hmm.
can go and they can go, and they're fearless.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't come to set by themselves. So then you have a lot of parents that were bringing them, and their parents wanted them to be superstars more than they did. So the
Yeah.
culture started to become, I don't care about everybody else. I'm
Cutthroat.
gonna, I'm the best. I'm, I'm beating. There was no respect for the veteran guys that had
Right.
paved the way. It's these young kids come through there and beat one of these guys that are very decorated, and they're taunting them. They're talking junk, and there's a demographic for that for the show too. But
Hmm.
all the OG ninjas and all the guys that had come up through it, supporting each other and helping each other, and like, how are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
It started to take a hit, and all these younger ninjas started really just changing the game. And there's also leagues that had started up. So I did a lot of competitions outside the show
Mm-hmm.
because the show's only once a year. So in those competitions, they're open to everybody. So these kids started competing in those as well. And, it's the soccer mom mentality. They come up,
Yeah.
and so mama's yelling at the ref who's judging this course, and
Mm-hmm.
create drama, and you know people taunting and people upset with each other, and the culture of helping each other was just kind of going away. So
Yeah.
I didn't really like what it was becoming either.
Yeah.
So
Because it sounds like you developed some friendships, some relationships, some real respect for the other competitors, even from like the very first time. Like it sounds like that was like it was something that it was a tight knit community because you were doing something very hard, and even
yeah,
if even if you did tell them something to do, it was still hard, like even if you did help them out, it was still hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, the parents
there was
more
a
than anything.
there was a community of unity there. I mean, we were all from all different
Yeah.
backgrounds, political views,
Hmm.
whatever, but we had that one shared goal that we were working towards.
Yeah.
So that a lot of that stuff didn't really matter too much because
Yeah.
there was enough respect for what we were doing together in unity that
Hmm.
that was pretty special. That was pretty special, and a lot of newer communities will have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those guys, I still talk to them weekly. Some of them.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I've got
Yeah.
some fantastic relationships, and
Yeah. So do you still do rock climbing and stuff like that?
not as much as I'd like to. I've definitely
Yeah.
shifted a lot of what I do. Your
Yeah.
time is a little bit more limited as
Hmm.
work gets more of a career, and
Yeah.
girls are getting older and they've got interests, and
Yeah.
wife's got interests that she wasn't able to do any of that stuff when we were in the hospital. She
Sure.
was
Yeah.
she was bound to the hospital
Hmm.
being full time. So no, not so much.
Yeah.
I really miss rock climbing. That's something
Yeah.
I'll probably always do to a
Yeah.
point. The ninja stuff, I don't do much of that.
Yeah.
I'll go to the gym. My buddy Chad still owns the gym here, so
Hmm.
he does. I'll go over there when he's getting ready for a comp and help him, make sure the
Yeah.
obstacles are set up a certain way, and sometimes like that. But no, not too much ninja stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's brutal on your shoulders and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
your tendon strength. But
And how old are you now?
37.
37. Yeah, I was gonna guess right around there. And I'm sure there I don't know, were there older ninjas? Like what are some of
Yeah,
the older ones to have success?
yeah. So one of my buddies, Jeff Britton, he was the first one to ever beat the show. Season 7. That was the season I was at the hospital.
Hmm.
I trained with it. I trained with him, rock climbed with him, good friend.
Hmm.
Competed with him in comps outside of the show, and we'd go back and forth on who was winning those comps. But he was the first ever American Ninja Warrior.
Oh.
And now so the last obstacle is a 80-foot rope climb, and you have to
Hmm.
do it under 30 seconds. So he did it, and then another guy came behind him that qualified and did it like a second faster than him. So that guy was crowned the grand champion for the year, but Jeff was actually the first one ever to beat the course. So it
Oh.
took 7 seasons for somebody to beat it, and there has
And
only been
then someone else just barely like edged him out in the same year
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. So he wasn't acknowledged as the
Yeah.
grand champion, but he was the first one to beat it. So
And he was a
um,
little older, like what was his age?
yeah, so he's not older. I think he's just over, I would say 40, low 40s now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so that's not older, but old
Yeah.
enough for something like that. And
Yeah.
I've got actually one of my buddies lives down here at the coast. His name's Chuck. We call him the Chuckster. He's done the show 3 times, I believe,
Hmm.
and he is close to 80.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then one of our other friends, she lives down there in Southport as well, Jenny.
Hmm.
She's been on the show a handful of times. Her daughter is Jessie Graff, which if anybody's watched the show, they know who Jessie is. But she's in her, I think she's in her 70s, and she's done okay.
Hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah, very cool. Any plans to ever go back on the show?
I, I haven't had a really strong calling to it.
Hmm.
I'm not opposed. I always said I'm not opposed to it, especially
Yeah,
for the reasons I was doing it before.
sure.
But my daughter Hazel, in the last month, I think, has asked me 3 different times, Dad, how come you're not gonna do Ninja Warrior right now? I'm like, well, it's not really going on right now because there was a writer strike and some other
Mm.
things that put everything on hold. But she asked me this the other day, again the other day. She was actually wearing an American Ninja Warrior hoodie that
Yeah.
It was probably way too big for her and it actually fits her now. But it's like, Dad, are you gonna go back on Ninja Warrior one day? I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why. He's like, I think you should. So there's been a little probing there, and I'm not sure if
Yeah.
I'm ready for that yet, but
Yeah,
for the right for the right reasons, I would.
you'd have to train, I guess, get back into the swing of things, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and then
I'd
you'd have
have
to
to
get in
do a
front of
little
the
bit.
camera again,
I'd
and
have to
that's the
do a
tough
little
part.
bit more training now than I had to do before.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then would you have to send in an audition?
I'd have to do an audition.
Yeah,
The good thing about it is the producers love working with with what we
sure.
were doing, and
Yeah,
they've told me like they feel like they're part of something bigger doing it, and they
yeah,
absolutely love it. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
That's definitely neat. Yeah,
getting on the show, I don't think would be a problem for me
yeah,
because of that history and
sure.
what's happened with that. But I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm really enjoying the quiet mountain peaks
yeah,
15 miles from the next person right now.
yeah,
I'm in Colorado and
yeah, yeah.
doing a lot of hunting. So
Sure. Well, cool. Thanks so much, Kenny, for coming on. This has been absolutely fascinating to me. Of course, I admire what you've been able to accomplish with that, and also um, the shift in focus. I think was really good for you for just to kind of add more meaning to something that was fun, and certainly entertaining and whatnot. But this, added so much more meaning to it, and it was something that I know, having gone through that with your daughter, it just was such a personal thing for you. And then, of course, getting connected with these other kids that needed it. Um, yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
yeah, it's always, I mean, I don't mind sharing, and it's always good because I always forget so much what actually happened because I'm
Yeah,
more of like a eyes forward kind of guy.
sure.
So it's good for me to sit back and reflect and talk,
Yeah,
watching some of those videos of our story, man, it was tearing me up a little bit, seeing the hurt in my
yeah.
wife's eyes and
Oh,
seeing my daughter there and brings a little bit
yeah,
of it back. And
yeah.
think we need to reflect on those things time to time anyway. So I
That's right.
appreciate you
Yeah,
bringing me in and
yeah.
helping me reflect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Um, and for the audience, I don't have uh, another interview lined up just yet, but we have some names, and certainly send me any names of people that you would love to see interviewed, because I get so much out of these. They're for me as much as for anybody. So again, appreciate it. Hang on here, Kenny. I'm gonna hang up over on the live side, but thanks everybody, and have a good evening.